Welcome to Small Bike Stuff. This episode is filmed at Adrenalyn Motorcycles in Mount Maunganui, New Zealand. They have, full disclaimer, I used to work there, but I no longer do and I haven't for quite a while. But they have one of the most impressive two-stroke collections you've ever seen in your life. Not only two strokes, they've got a ton of Suzukis, a whole bunch of different brands, but there's a lot of Suzukis. So all the three bikes that I filmed here today will be on my channel. There was a Suzuki Van, there was a Suzuki RG50 Walter Wolf edition, and a Suzuki Katana, which is behind me, that has a 252 stroke wedged into the frame. First kick. The pipes are still cold. Cold start. Welcome to this episode of Small Bike Stuff. This is a video I'm incredibly excited about because this is an absolute rarity in the world of small bikes. This is a Suzuki RG50 Gamma, and not only that, it's a Walter Wolf edition. Now the first question you're going to ask me is, what the heck is Walter Wolf? And as you can see there's the Walter Wolf logo and Walter Wolf Racing. Walter Wolf, there was a guy, and he was a mogul who owned many things among cigarette branding, a cigarette company, and he would sponsor a whole bunch of Suzukis in the early 80s, teamed up with Suzuki, and they actually won the All Japan 500cc championship with a RG500 two-stroke, so that's a four-cylinder 500cc bike. And due to the success of that race, they decided to partner with Suzuki again and release a whole bunch of two-stroke Walter Wolf livery Suzukis. And this is one of them, the RG50. Now, full disclaimer, this was just a 1995 Suzuki RG50 Gamma, and what happened to this bike is that it was completely stripped down to the bone, restored, and instead of just giving it a boring old Suzuki paint job, which isn't really that boring in the scheme of things, but compared to this, you know, there's a lot to be said. And what happened is it was completely redone in the Walter Wolf livery. So it looks incredible. And what is an RG50? Well, let's get into it. Let's walk around the bike and have a little bit of a look. Under there, you've got a radiator. So we've got a liquid cooled 50cc two-stroke, okay? Now, if you look at the speedometer here, it goes up to 60 kilometers per hour, and redline was sitting at about 10,500 RPM. But will it actually let us get there? That'll be a very interesting question. Once we get down here, we can see that we have the gears. So we've got neutral, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6. So there is 6 gears. One other thing you may have noticed, one pipe, 2. So we're looking at 2 exhaust pipes, 1, 2, 1, 2, coupled by that beautiful tail there. That's kind of a Gamma signature there, that tail, and you can see that pipe popping up there, and this one sitting just there. It's a really, really wonderful piece of kit. All right, so I just did the intro, but I didn't like where it was sitting. We've got a bit of sun coming my way, but hopefully we'll have enough time. We'll sit it here because it looks much better. So this is a 50cc two-stroke. You're putting about 7 to 8 horsepower out, and it's a 6-speed manual. Now, the one thing that you'll know if you've ridden a lot of two-strokes before is there's really no beans, there's no power in the lower RPM range. So riding a bike like this, you really need to focus on, it's hard to show you more of the engine there, but there it is. You really need to focus on keeping those revs up, changing late in the rev range, and not letting it bog down. Basically, if you bog down, it takes ages to get back on pipe, back on speed, and you're doing yourself a disservice, so watch out for that. You can see it's liquid cooled. There's a single carburetor in there. We've got 850ml oil capacity in the engine. They sound pretty good. They run fairly well, and for a 50cc bike, it's truly impressive what they can get up to. All right, enough of the engine, let's get into the wheels. And as you can see here, we've got wonderful, I'd like to say tri-spokes, but there's actually 6 spokes. And these are a 17-inch wheel, so that's running a 80 by 90 17 on the front. And if we go to the rear, we have an 18. So we've got 17 on the front, and we've got 18 on the rear. So you've got what's our tyre size here? 90 by 80 by 18. So the stance of it's fairly interesting. You've got a larger rear tyre, a smaller front tyre. The rear is actually a drum brake. So we've got a tiny little drum brake there that is foot operated. And if we put that foot peg down, that's how it should look. If we head to the front, it is disc brake powered, and it's got an nose dive fork. Now, I don't know exactly how this technology works. If you do, jump in the comments and let us know. But as you can see, the front brake has another hose going over to this little doodacky here, which possibly has something to do with the anti-dive, but I really do not know. Well, let's start on the left side here. So we've got a wonderful switch block that uses one switch for everything. So high, low, right and left. And you can indicate left when you've got high beam or low beam, and you can indicate right when you've got high beam or low beam. But returning it back to the center to turn your turn signals off, there is no option to push like a lot of bikes, so you've just got to make sure you do it. There's our horn button here, and we have our clutch here because this is a manual 6-speed bike. Now it looks like there would have been a lights on and lights off switch here at one point, but it no longer has it. And we've got a front brake here. We've got our key ignition, and you can see the neutral light comes on when you turn the key on there. We've got a standard gear shifter that puts us into our 6-speed transmission. And so we've got 1 down and then 5 up. So just a traditional motorcycle transmission there. And yes, despite being 50cc, this is a full manual. Our rear brake is operated by a foot pedal here, and it's cable operated. So you want to make sure that this cable is always nice and lubricated, because the last thing you want is to get your brake stuck on. When it's a 50cc bike, you really need all the power you can get and no drag. So doing all you can to make sure that this operates perfectly is probably in your best interests. Now, the other control that we've got here is our kickstart, because this is a kickstart bike. We'll hopefully do a start up soon, and it will be cold. The engine's deathly cold at the moment. Hasn't started today, so hopefully we can get a good cold start. Now, customizations or modifications. Well, let's just start at the fact that this is a Walter Wolf livery bike. Therefore, basically the whole thing is custom. Yes, this is remarkably similar to how they came out of the shop, but they just didn't look like this livery-wise. Full disclaimer, they did actually release like a RG50 and RG250 and RG500 Walter Wolf edition from the factory, but they were incredibly rare, and I don't actually know which markets they were sold into. So seeing them like this is really awesome. The plastics or the fairing kind of give you a lot of feeling of a bigger bike. You know, you've got your cowl down the bottom that swoops right under the front wheel. You've got this nice cage or cover for the radiator there. You've got a vent for the exit of the radiator on the left side. The tank itself is a pretty standard tank. Lift and turn to open the tank. There you go, and you've got your oil right there. So that's how you fill up with your oil. The tank is inside the tank or on top of the tank with the same access point. There's your fuel cap. Put that on, turn that around, flip that closed, satisfying clunk. This seat here has been redone by KP Upholstery. KP Upholstery is a good friend of mine, Kaz, who's featured in a lot of my videos. He's an incredible sewing madman, and he can create stuff like this fairly easily. So this is a very good replica of what the seat originally looked like, and the original one was faded and not quite as nice as this. So the main paint scheme is painted. It's not just stickers, but then the logos and the wording, they are all stickers. So you've got a key here, which is to open the under seat, but there's not really any storage there. The other thing is this pipe. So you've got one pipe there, the other one's somewhere over there. They are connected underneath by some fantastic magician who made these in Japan. I think it would have just been a person. I don't know if they were sold off the shelf. The chambers are quite small, and I don't know if they've taken into account the science for a double pipe on this bike. It'll be interesting to see how this thing rides. Does it need tuning? Is it okay? Does it work as it should? Now, any faults or problems or issues with the bike? Not that I'm aware of. I need to take it for a ride, and I guess you'll see when I'm riding it if there is any issues. I don't really talk on these rides. I just think you hear the sound of the bike itself. Is that for me, it's too shiny and too good looking. Like, I wouldn't want to take this out and use this every day because it looks so good. But, you know, that's more saying something about me than it is about the bike. So I think it's a wonderful machine, and I don't really think there's any faults. This is an impeccable recreation of a bike that really did exist, but is almost impossible to find. So I'm really stoked to see this from Adrenalyn Motorcycles here in Mount Maunganui, New Zealand. First kick. The pipes are still cold. Cold start. I'm going to count now from that end all the way down. So what we're starting here, 1.
Well, that's not mine, so you can't count that.
Okay, 1.
Well, that's not mine either. But anyway, it's here today. So we'll count what's here today.
Yeah.
So that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Okay, it's 21, 19, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 30, 32, 34, 35, 35.
And then 36 outside. There you go.
Nearly 40.
Adrenalyn Motorcycles. Nearly 42 Suzuki, so most of them are 2-stroke.